Hi, I'm Ian Hayden. Welcome to MSing About and My MS. Today, some people who have or who have had MS.
There's not much sponsorship potential in that one, Ian.
We'll see about that, Shane. Now, I thought I'd tell you about a few early documented cases of MS, back when they didn't know what it was or what to do with it. Way back in 1380, in the Dutch town of Schiedam, a baby girl called Lidwina was born. That was 580 years before Jim Barry started making wine. Shane, product shop?
Not a chance, Ian.
Right. At age 15, Shane, Lidwina went ice skating and took a tumble. She broke a rib and later became paralysed. Historians believe this to be the first ever recorded case of MS. She decided to let her body heal itself, which goes to show that homeopathy has been rubbish for more than 600 years. She got worse, and worse, and worse, lots worse. Bits of her dropped off and her intestines fell out. Her parents actually kept them in a jar because they smelt nice. Go figure. Maybe she'd been surviving on a diet of gardenia and honeysuckle. Still, the Dutch eat pickled herrings called rollmops, no accounting for taste. Anyway, the only part of Liddy's anatomy not affected was her left hand. But soon after, miracles occurred at her bedside and people made pilgrimages to be healed by this holy woman. She was canonised in 1890 and she is now the patron saint of ice skaters. Go figure, or go figure skating. And good on her for not letting that good left hand get in the way of progress. Now, another early case of MS, and perhaps the first detailed documentation of how multiple sclerosis can affect some people. He was Augustus d'Este, the grandson of King George III. King George III was famous for losing two things, the American colonies and his mind. Augustus d'Este, or Gus as I've come to know him, was diagnosed as having MS in 1948, a century after he died. And 1948 was the year after Jim Barry graduated from university in South Australia with a degree in winemaking. Shane?
Look, no! Look, and a winemaking degree is called enology, just for shits and giggles. And no.
Right. Well, Gus's MS was diagnosed because of the detailed diaries he kept for 22 years. His last entry was in 1846, the year anaesthetic was invented, so medicine wasn't particularly advanced. Gus diarised vision loss, loss of fine motor skills, his handwriting is shocking, increased weakness in his legs, clumsy hands, numbness, dizziness, bladder disturbances, and erectile dysfunction. His grandfather didn't suffer from that. He gave his wife 15 children. Now, when Gus could still walk, he even detailed how many steps he'd take in his room each day. In 1844, he began to use a wheelchair, and in his last years he was confined to bed. Now, I've read in various places that despite his illness, Gus kept an optimistic view of life. I was going to say no use complaining, but really, it looks like that's all he did for 22 years. It's worth noting that MS treatments have only been around for about 30 years. Before that, it was a case of go home and get your affairs in order. Here's another from the early 20th century. Sickly from a young age, this bloke was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when he was 26. Jim Barry turned 26 in 1951.
No more wine shots. Unless, wait, maybe I can insert a shot of a vineyard. Creative artsy shit that. Peeps love it.
Yeah, whatever. The Journal of a Disappointed Man records this bloke's fight with MS. Wilhelm Nero Pilot Barbellion was the nom de plume of Bruce Cummings, and his journal is one of the most moving diaries ever created. Cummings was born in Barnstable in 1889, and his life changed when he tried to enlist in the British Army to fight in World War One. He consulted his doctor before taking the enlistment medical, and he arrived with a sealed confidential letter to present to the recruiting medical officer, who rejected him as unfit for duty. So Cummings opened the letter on his way home, and he was staggered to learn that his doctor had diagnosed him as having MS, and he had less than 5 years to live. The Journal of a Disappointed Man, it's filled with frank and keen observation, unique philosophy and personal resignation, and it was described by its author as a study in the nude. Cummings died in 1919, 6 years before Jim Barry was even born.
No, don't you even dare go there, Ian.
Right. Okay, let's forget about old-time MS and look at some famous people who have or who have had MS in Hollywood and closer to home. People who all lived while Jim Barry was making fine wine.
Stop it now!
Right. Right. In Tinseltown, Oscar nominee Terry Garr, Mouseketeer and actress Annette Funicello, actresses Christina Applegate and Selma Blair, Ozzy Osbourne's son Jack, and comedian, actor, writer Richard Pryor. Pryor said that his MS stood for more shit. While he co-wrote Blazing Saddles and starred in Silver's Streak and was one of the best stand-up comedians of all time, he had little respect for his health. He was a heavy smoker and a heavy drug taker. And he had 3 heart attacks, the last one taking him out aged 65. And closer to home, the only track Olympian, male or female, to win at every distance, Golden Girl Betty Cuthbert. There's also comedian, writer and former Doug Anthony All-Star Tim Ferguson, the former mayor of Ipswich, who served time for extortion and corruption, sexual assault, fraud and drug possession, Paul Pasali, and actress, ARIA Hall of Famer and lead singer with the Divinals, Chrissy Amphlett. It just shows you that MS does not discriminate. It can affect the good, the bad and the ugly. I'm not saying which one was which. Smoking, by the way, is not good for MS. It's not good for anyone, but particularly people with MS. It can speed up how fast you become disabled, as well as mean more and bigger lesions and more relapses. And if you suffer from short-term memory loss, you might forget when you put the last one out and start chain smoking, which these days would send you broke. Right, nearly time to wrap it up for today.
Told you, not much sponsorship coming out of that episode.
I said nearly time, Shane, there's plenty more time to play.
Right.
As I said, former Musketeer, singer and beach party actress Annette Funicello had MS, as does Selma Blair.
Yeah, and?
And Annette was fabulous in how to stuff a wild bikini.
Are you fishing for swimwear sponsorship by any chance?
No. In 1987, Funicello was forced to announce that she'd been diagnosed with MS because of rumours that she was drunk all the time. Selma Blair came out for the same reason. And if you drink in moderation, you don't get drunk. But you can enjoy something like a Jim Barry Watervale Riesling. And just don't take my word for it. Here are Jim Murphy's tasting notes. Product shot now, please, Shane.
Sure, whatevs.
Jim Barry Watervale Riesling from the Clare Valley is all about the musk, bracing acidity and juicy limes. This perennial favourite Riesling never misses a beat, marrying concentration with finesse, current drinking pleasure with cellar-worthy wow factor.
Yeah, but what's that got to do with MS?
Oh, heaps. Members of the general public often mistake MS for being drunk. An awkward gait can present as wearing the wobbly boot. Some people with MS have speech issues like slurring or forgetting words, and that can lead to a breathalyzer test in the disability parking spot. There are a few other similarities with being drunk and living with MS. We can get vertigo and dizziness. We can have bladder issues. We can suffer from abnormal vision. And I'm not talking about having to close one eye to negotiate the drive home via the back streets. And we can suffer from memory loss. And we can suffer from memory loss. Yeah, I mentioned mobility issues. Drunks only bump into the furniture on their way to bed. We can get it from the moment we get up. Yep, MS in a bottle, yeah. So here's to moderation, Jim Barry. It's time to wrap things up for this instalment, but I'll be back again soon with more MSing About on the MSing About YouTube channel. I'd love you to subscribe, and I'd love you to drop into my website, msingabout.com.au. Shoot me a line about something funny that has happened to you thanks to MS. Don't be shy, we're all grown-ups. Thanks for joining me, and bye for now. Cheers.